Welcome to the Animal Training Academy podcast show. I'm your host, Ryan Cartledge. I know that you're here because you want to master your animal training skills using a force-free approach. And to handle the variety of challenges you face, you need a broad knowledge and experience base. The problem is, we all get stuck and hit rough patches in our training, which can leave us feeling overwhelmed and helpless. Our mission since 2015 is to empower trainers just like you. The Animal Training Academy has helped thousands of trainers globally to develop skills, gain confidence, and positively influence both animal and human learners. Here's how we can do the same for you. Sign up for our membership waitlist at www.atamember.com. Register when our doors open email arrives and start growing your training skills. Build impactful training practices benefiting you and those you train. So join the waitlist at www.atamember.com. And while waiting, enjoy this free podcast show. We want to see you avoid embarrassment, overwhelm, and burnout. Instead, we want to see you build resilience to setbacks, get more organised, and grow your training skills and knowledge. In short, we want to see you enjoy confidence in yourself as a trainer and lead a fulfilling life, positively impacting the lives of the animal and human learners you work with. Welcome back to another episode of the Animal Training Academy podcast show. If you joined us for our last episode, you'll recall the absolutely awesome conversation we had with the incredible Michele Pouliot. If you missed the previous episode though, no worries. You're absolutely welcome to stick around for this one, which promises to be equally fantastic. And if you want to check out part one, you can find it as the previous episode in whatever app you use to listen to these episodes. Now, a brief reintroduction for our esteemed guest. Michele Pouliot is a name that is deeply respected in the world of positive reinforcement animal training. Michele's heart found its true calling in dog training in 1972, thanks to her first Labrador. While she began her journey as an equestrian professional, her dedication and passion led her to a remarkable career with dogs. Spanning an impressive 42-year tenure, Michele dedicated her skills as a guide dog mobility instructor at Guide Dogs for the Blind. Over her career, she trained more than 350 teams before her retirement from the organisation in 2016. What sets Michele apart is her pioneering spirit. She was instrumental in integrating positive reinforcement techniques into guide dog training. As the Director of Research and Development at Guide Dogs, she not only advocated for these methods, but also evaluated guide dog programs on an international scale. Beyond her commendable work with guide dogs, Michele has been a formidable presence in the realm of dog sports since the 1970s. Her prowess in canine musical freestyle has earned her international recognition. In 2007, the renowned Karen Pryor invited Michele to contribute to the Clicker Expo conferences. Since then, Michele has been sharing her expertise on clicker techniques across a spectrum of dog disciplines. With a rich experience of over 51 years in animal training, Michele's seminars have gained worldwide acclaim. Michele, welcome to part 2 of our conversation. I'm so excited to dive in again with you.
I'm excited to be back. That was a really fun conversation we had, so now we get to continue it.
It was, and I promise we were meant to go over 3 things last time. We went over 1 of 3, so I promised to do both the other 2 today. No promises. In our previous episode, we began discussing the theme of selling without selling and the unsung strength of positive reinforcement. We explored one of the 3 ideas Michele has to share with us on how to advocate for positive reinforcement, especially when faced with those who still rely on aversive tools. The idea in part 1 centered on the power of a small act of kindness. Michele shared profound insights on building trust, effective communication, and the importance of adaptability in teaching. Today, we're diving back into uncover the remaining strategies. So now, picking up from where we left off, Michele, could you please introduce us to idea/strategy number 2?
Right. So along with that whole kindness and respect thing comes a self-awareness for the individual trainer, teacher, and we could label it honesty, and honest with yourself and honest with the client, meaning that you are honest about your limitations to yourself, and you're honest about the areas that you need to improve so that you can work towards self-improvement. So I think that we mentioned this in the last talk about a little bit about dog trainers and ego and being defensive about what they're doing, which is really normal. I don't know if in your country you've heard the joke. I'm guessing you have internationally. If you get 10 dog trainers in a room, the only thing that they can agree upon is that the 11th one is doing it wrong, right? So dog trainers have a tendency to be backseat drivers, backseat trainers, meaning when you watch someone train, they have a tendency to be extremely critical over what they're seeing, even to other positive reinforcement trainers, such as you should have clicked then, you didn't click then. And the honesty of that is that you have a whole different perspective on the animal being trained. You get to actually have a better view of it. And sometimes being the observer enables you to see something that the person who's physically at the animal training really couldn't see as clearly as you could. So I've been a little disappointed as positive reinforcement has just grown amazingly in the last decade and expanded. I've been disappointed in how many positive reinforcement trainers I run into who don't have the drive to continually improve themselves and learn more and expand. So I'll give you an example. So Clicker Expo is being held this next year in 2024 in Portland, which is right next to where I live, Portland, Oregon. And it has been in Portland, Oregon several times. This is probably at least the 4th time that an expo in the past 10 years has been in Portland, Oregon. So I know a lot of people in this area who are trainers and really good positive reinforcement trainers. And how few of them take the opportunity to go to Clicker Expo and learn and improve themselves, possibly, even if they just take away one little tidbit that helps them improve in whatever they do. It constantly amazes me how many people I know. Some of them come to me for lessons, private lessons, and I ask them, "Are you going to go to X?" I go, "No," and I'm, will you come for lessons? So that kind of is like you want improvement. It's frustrating to me to see how far for instance, the guide dog industry and the service dog industry has come in the past decade. But that's a group that I certainly note. They get to a certain level of their positive reinforcement skills, and I'm not really seeing that they have any more drive to realize, you can get better. You can find out ways to improve what you're doing. It's not like you get to a certain list of things that you've accomplished and you're done. I mean, good training is always changing. So honesty is important between you and the client, between you and the client, and the client has something surrounding them that's affecting the problem. For instance, family members or friends, they've got a problem with a dog, and obviously it's affected also by those other people. So the honesty with everyone, just about your assessment, but also honesty within your limitations, possibly, and not being afraid to say that, we tried that, it's not working, and I'm kind of out of what I know, but I can find out. I can research, I can find out, and we can look at what other people have been doing with this problem. The cool thing about positive reinforcement trainers is when you ask them their opinions, so if you have people you can go to ask, they're very welcome and excited about sharing with you what you could do to solve a problem. And very few of them will immediately say, well, that'll cost you this for me to tell you that. I mean, they're just very open and sharing trainer to trainer, which is really great. So number 2 is honesty to yourself, your abilities, and to the client. If you find yourself describing something that your client came to you for, the problem, and you're describing it in a way that's kind of hiding some thoughts you have about it, that's not good. You should feel like you're being extremely honest, but of course, sensitive and kind if it's bad news. So you have to get really good at, but being honest is a biggie. And I think dog trainers as a whole, it's true of a lot of animal trainers in general. I know a lot of horse trainers, and they kind of are the same way. I think that joke that I told was originally told about doctors. So it was like if you get 10 doctors. So it could be that a lot of professions can use that joke and they all laugh because they all see that there's a lot of ego in the profession. I think that being honest with your learner is actually a realistic thing to think about. How many times has somebody said, well, he knows this. I've done enough repetitions. He should be doing better than this. And the thing about our animals is the animals are really honest back with us. They're actually easier for us to deal with because the human, sometimes they might not be being honest. So a client might not actually be telling you what actually happened, the event that happened that caused a problem, for instance. They're kind of hiding it because they're embarrassed about it or something. Animals don't hide much. They are what they are, and usually they're behaving because of the circumstances they're presented with. But as a trainer, being honest with your learner will make you a better trainer too, meaning acknowledging that the simple fact is what I'm doing isn't working. And as I said in part 1, the very cool thing about good marker training is it works. You should be seeing something changing. It might not be the big change you're looking for as a goal, but you should see behavior changing. And if you're not seeing it changing in the direction that you want it to change, be honest with yourself that I need to reassess what I'm doing. Because unfortunately, we have the tendency to keep doing the same thing, thinking the longer we do it, it'll finally work. And all you've really done is callous that animal up away from the goal that you want. So it's kind of like a Boy Scout thing, isn't it? Honesty, kindness.
Yeah, well, you've connected a lot of dots for me, and honesty has been something I've been thinking a lot about recently, and just contemplating on. You said very briefly there, you brushed over it. You used the term masking, and so I think of those. They're not mimers, but you get those white porcelain masks. And it's like you're wearing one of those. So you can't see what the facial expressions of the person is behind it. All you can see is this bland expression. And I kind of feel like when I think about honesty, excuse me, we're wearing masks a lot. And our job is also to understand that others are wearing masks. And that's really hard. And it's a vulnerable area to get into. And I might be going slightly off topic compared to what you're talking about in terms of being honest with yourself and being honest with clients. But I just want to acknowledge firstly that it's hard. And let's say that you want to talk to a client or you want to talk to someone who's using aversives, because that's what this topic is, this episode is about. So we notice that they're using aversives. We want to be kind to them. We talked about that in episode 1, and we want to be honest with them. So I think we want to additionally change behavior in the person we're talking to. We're entering into a behavior change plan, and we want them to win. We want the animal to win, and we want ourselves to win. We want a win-win outcome for everyone. I found that really challenging.
Yes, it is. It's especially because to be kind, sometimes you're not really totally honest with the person, are you? Because you're trying to be pleasant and internally, So when I say honest, I certainly wouldn't in that scenario let them know how upset I am that they're using a prong collar or that they've got an electric collar on their dog to stop it from barking or something. So that certainly is an anti-honest moment, isn't it? But at the same time, it's letting your kindness overcome that honesty for the moment, but having a plan. So I'll tell you a story. My next door neighbor got a Weimaraner puppy several years ago. Darling puppy. And I used their puppy for a lot of footage that I put together for my distraction course through the IAABC. So he's in this course, all these cute, darling puppy. And I thought, well, this will be really good because, they're getting free training on their dog and this dog's going to be so prepped for positive reinforcement work. And I was just using him for one area. And at the same time, they were taking the puppy to a field trainer. And the field trainer was prepping him to be, what his breed does, pointing birds in the field and flushing birds and then retrieving them. And I assumed because of the location, physically, geographically, that it probably was a trainer that was using aversives. It's kind of rare in that area to see somebody in field work, not using traditional techniques. But when I asked his wife, who was at the time trying to kind of be the trainer, she's a horse person and trained horses for a long time. So she was really having fun watching the training I was doing, and she was really getting into this. And when I was finished with the filming, of course, I had no more access to the dog, and he's still a puppy. He was like, by the time I finished using him, he was probably 3 months old. And he had to at least be a year when I saw him out on the road with the husband walking him. And the husband had like a lariat rope on the dog, looked like literally the kind of rope that cowboys use to rope a steer or something. And it was like the length of the leash, though. And it was kind of like a slip lead that you would see a show dog, a conformation dog or something, where it's kind of what it looked like. And he was using correction methods to stop the dog from pulling. And so I asked him, just like we're walking down the road, I'm doing my exercise thing and he's doing his exercise thing. And I asked him how that was working for him. And he said, oh, it's working really good. So I just watched him and he walked off in the distance. And I watched, there's a jerk, there's a jerk, there's another jerk, there's another jerk. So in a distance of probably 100 yards, he at least was like having to use the aversive about 5 or 6 times. The dog wasn't upset, right? So it actually probably wasn't even effective punishment, but it worked for him, except I was like really noting how many times he was using it. And then I got to talk to his wife when she was out walking one day and she wasn't walking the dog. I asked how the dog was going and how is he, and she was mentioning there were a couple issues and the dog had growled at them. And it was kind of odd for me to hear this nice outgoing young Weimaraner growling at them. And I didn't say a thing, but she offered that she thinks it was because of some of the shock collar work that the field trainer did. And of course, not surprised. So anyway, time goes by, fast forward. About a year later, I have an opportunity where I'm walking and I run into the husband again, and we're walking the same way together, the same direction. So we just start up a conversation about something else. And I start in my head counting how many corrections he gives this dog. And so I asked him, you're still happy with that? It looks like you're having to correct him about the same as the last time I saw you. And he goes, oh, no, he's much better. What had really happened is he had gotten better at just automatically correcting. right? So it was just a trigger for him. Dog pulls, I jerk. Dog pulls, I jerk. And when I talked to him about the option of positive reinforcement and getting the dog to where he actually wanted to not pull, he said, oh, I don't want to be feeding him so much. There was my information that I needed was it isn't about that he doesn't mind jerking, but he minds carrying food. Okay, so that was really the piece that stuck out to me. And there could have been another piece of there that he kind of enjoyed being a little on the dominant side of this dog or something like that. But as we're walking, I said, okay, so between here and that house up there, so I gave him a point that we were walking to. And I said, let's just go ahead and count the number of times you have to jerk him. Again, I've never even implied there's anything mean going on, right? And so he goes, okay. He was into that. It was kind of exciting, challenge. And of course, what he's going to try to do now. He's going to try to not have to jerk because I'm counting out loud. And he tried a couple times to let it go. And of course, the dog, as soon as it didn't get a jerk, it started pulling harder and harder. So anyway, so we get to this point, and I think I counted about 12 jerks on the collar. And I said, I think what you've got is a tool that's just maintaining it from getting bigger, but I don't see that it's going to get better. So you may want to try and experiment and do a couple of your walks with food. And what we're going to do is reward him before he pulls and see if there's a change in behavior. And I could tell he wasn't going to do that. But the interesting thing that got his attention was, yeah, you'll be feeding him a lot, but I'll bet you I can get below 10 in that same distance in just 2 sessions. So what you'll see is less and less. Yeah, you may have to maintain it with food. Yeah, exactly. But, if you think you would enjoy your walk better when it's all positive versus that you're punishing when he does something, you might want to consider it. Now, nothing has changed because I can tell he doesn't, it didn't strike him, but it did make his wife ask me about it. So they talked about it. So there was enough interest that he was like asking about it. But the key here is also looking at the situation. The honesty was in my head, the dog's fine. He's not upset when he gets jerked. There's no negative. All that happens is he's still looking ahead and he just kind of stops pulling real hard. So there's low pressure on the collar and the dog's walking. He's having a ball. I'm not seeing that there's anything there. It doesn't mean that at other times maybe he does jerk harder. I don't know. But for him and this dog, that's working. And at this point, my honesty with myself is if I tried to change him, I might actually make him a little angry or irritated and not be open to anything. So what I wanted to plant in his head was that if you do that for a while, you will be able to cut down the number of times you feed. So in the distance of our walk, I'm going to make a guess. In fact, I'd make a bet if you wanted to do this as like an experiment, that within 3 sessions, we would get it down to less corrections than you're giving. I don't think you realize how many corrections you're giving in your walk. It's a lot. And I know I can get it lower than that if you're ever interested. So if you ever just want to go, let's do this. It'll be a fun experiment. Has he come back? No. But my honesty tells me it's not going to change if I get more aggressive about it. I know it's not going to change. Better to keep him on really good conversation level in that he's not feeling I'm criticizing him in any way. It's tough stuff. But I think that the honesty in ourselves sometimes is that we feel like we have to make everybody change. That's our job. No, you got to get them to want to change and want to do it. And the honesty is the acknowledgement that for him to walk out the door and go for a walk, it's a lot easier and quicker to just walk out the door, put the lead on at the door and walk out and start walking versus getting his bag of food ready and carrying that. To him, that's like a big, ugly obstacle because it's something that he's adding to the need. So it's tough. And I think honesty, I wasn't being totally honest with him. I was a little frustrated, but I was still being honest about the work, right? And I wasn't judging the work. So by trying to make him feel that I'm not judging, I'm just observing. And I had a little bit of history with the dog with positive reinforcement. So he knew that. So it isn't like I didn't know the dog. And I probably, if I hadn't even known the dog, I might not have ever even approached it. Again, my honesty says the dog looks fine. The dog's not upset. The dog's not cringing. He's not vocalizing. In fact, he looks just the same. The only thing that changes is that he stops pulling for about 20 feet and then he needs another one of those.
You're connecting lots of dots for me, and I have lots of questions. Let's stay on track with where we are at in the conversation and pick up from where you kind of ended that story, and that is that you're talking about honesty, and you mentioned there as well that you weren't completely honest. And I'm thinking about a situation in my life at the moment where I was completely honest, but I feel like I delivered it in a kind way. However, someone's shut down completely. So obviously for that individual learner, I haven't. But I was honest. I know that I was honest in my needs. But I also felt something that you felt. And that feeling was frustration. And Dot, you're connecting with me is that I'm starting to think I need to talk about more and acknowledge in myself that frustration is okay.
Yes. And why don't we kind of correlate that with when we're doing shaping and we withhold a mark? We do it to change behavior through what? Frustration. So I think my short answer to that would be a little bit of frustration is not a bad thing. I feel that way about training with withholding marks to change behavior, which when clicker training started was huge. It's like, that's what we did. We withheld to get the dog to change behavior. And we got further and further away from that, but we still use that to change behavior. And what I discovered through my journey with that is a little bit of frustration is all you need to change behavior. You don't have to actually escalate it to the animal, the learner getting really frustrated. Of course, with some animals, you can't do that. You'll get killed. But with dogs, we're spoiled because dogs, even aggressive dogs, it's really rare to see a dog when you withhold get aggressive. They just start trying to figure out a way to get the food. So when we feel frustration, I think that it's a part of our job, and what we do is to feel frustrated. And if we take a client out of it for a second, what are the other times we feel frustrated in our work? We feel frustrated when what we're doing isn't working. It's not effective. And it's worked before. So we've been reinforced before for doing a particular technique. Let's say we've done it dozens of times and it's always worked just fine. So I have a client, I'm selling that to them because, oh, this is great. We're going to take care of this. Let me show you what to do. And it actually isn't working. And your frustration level is going to only get bigger the longer you keep trying the same thing that isn't working. But if you let a little frustration give you information, frustration can be a good thing. Because if you're used to seeing a response to a technique and you're not seeing it, that frustration can make you go one way or the other. It can make you stop and reassess, which is what you really should do. Or, and I've been here before, it makes me try harder and harder to make that method / technique, whatever I was doing, it makes me adamant that I can make this work because I've been reinforced in the past that it works. So frustration's present without the client. It's present in just our training. And we do purposely frustrate our animals sometimes to change behavior. but we can do it in a subtle amount. So I think if you acknowledge, I will be feeling frustration, I am going to be frustrated. I know that when I talk to this person about changing to using positive reinforcement, I could bet money that I'm going to feel frustrated in my attempt to do that. But if I acknowledge that's going to be a little frustrating, but let me see how good I can sell it. How good can I sell it without being pushy and showing my frustration? So there's our honesty that goes a little behind the mask for a little bit of time because we want to be pleasant, but at the same time there's a reasoning why we're doing that, and that can get them to open up, to listen and consider. You can usually tell by human demeanor when, even though they're looking at you, they're not listening to you. It's like blah 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 blah, because you're not saying what they want to hear. So if you think about what would be the things this person wants to hear that I can be honest about, it can be not addressing your actual goal right away and spending time giving them positive feedback about their dog, how they handle their dog, and the relationship that you see with them and their dog. There's a lot of things you can do to make a person immediately want to hear you because you've given them positive reinforcement. So one of my favorite things to say to people, because usually dogs are so wonderful that usually they give you this opportunity, is, look how happy he looks right now. He just looks like he's got a big grin on his face. Or, what a cutie pie. What a personality this dog has. Or, what a beauty he is. He's just aesthetically gorgeous. Or, his coat is lovely. How do you're really doing a great job of keeping up that coat. Can you tell me what sort of products you use? So I'm being honest. I'm only going to pick things that I am telling the truth about. But at the same time, I'm using those to make the frustration of that person go away a little bit. So I'd rather start if I know I'm going to actually, maybe you don't know until you get there, but you get there and you know right away, ooh, this is going to be a hard sell. This is not, this person doesn't want to carry food. That's the problem. And that's the problem with my neighbor. He doesn't want to carry food and bother to use it. He'd rather, without thinking, jerk on the leash every 20 yards. But if you know and evaluate pretty quickly what you got, you can forget getting to that subject right away and just start out with what may seem like, empty praise. But if it's honest and you believe it, I mean, I've had to look sometimes really hard to find something really good to say. And sometimes it's just that the coat's in great shape. They may take their dog to a groomer, and a groomer is responsible for how great the coat looks, but it doesn't matter. It's still their dog, and they're going to be proud of it, and you're going to make them feel good about themselves. Or something like, that's a smart device you've got there to hold your food. It could just be somebody that just found some sort of bizarre treat holder and you haven't seen it before yet. And just showing a curiosity about it, because remember, you're the expert. You know everything, right? So for you to immediately go, that is a really cool bait bag, or that's a really cool leash. That looks really comfortable. Anything you can do to make them feel that you're seeing things in what they do with their animal that's right and cool. And is it kind of like fake love? Maybe. But I always try to find something that's real. And I learned that years ago. So when I started doing this sort of thing a long time ago, working with blind clients in the 70s and the 80s, when I started realizing that getting on their side first, making them like you because you like me, you like my dog, you like me. At first, I was just throwing kind of empty stuff out there. And I realized, it doesn't take real well, because whether they can hear it in your voice, whether they feel it, and they say it sounds phony to them, which I think a lot of humans are good at knowing when something's phony. But when you really mean something, if I can pick any little thing, or if somebody says, I go, oh, it looks like he's recently had an ear infection. How's that going? And they go, how did you know that? And I go, well, I can tell that you've been treating it, because there's the ointment around the ear gets a little greasy when they shake their head. And so it looks like he's been having his ears treated. How's that going? Just that sort of conversation is going to get them listening to you, because it's really clear you kind of are a good observer in it. And what is a good trainer? In observation. So observing things with their animal, it could be observing something they do with their animal that the dog likes. That's really, I have sold so many blind clients on how to touch their dog, and they've never had a dog before. They come to get a guide dog for a guide dog, and they've never related to actually petting a dog or whatever. When I say, when you put your hand under his chin and you scratch, the look on his face is incredible. And the tail wags. It's like you've got a button there to make his tail wag. I've changed more clients that way, but it was honest. It wasn't made up. It was like I had to say, why don't you try petting him on the chest? Let's go down and give him a scratch between his front legs. And when I see the dog doesn't mind that, like it was minding them hitting it on the top of the head, thinking they were petting them, when I see the dog's good with that, I'm going to go, oh, he likes that. Now, this is a blind person. So this person can't assess really by vision whether or not their dog likes it. But I can give them honesty in that he sure likes it a lot better than he does you patting him on the forehead, without saying that. So to be honest with you, I've been dishonest at times. What can I say? But as long as you're using it in an honest way, in that you really want to be honest about what you're trying to get them to do. You're not being dishonest there. You're trying to benefit them and their dog. I think putting those masks on at times of a happy face instead of a shock face, it could be that what they have on their dog's neck is just, I'm in shock. No, you don't do that. You act like it's every day that you see dogs with whatever it is. And you go, my goal is to show them they don't need that, without actually trying to tell them how awful it is right now. If it's working for them, it's working for them. So that works. So just like my guy with the Weimaraner, it's in his mind, it's working for him. If it had bugged him that he had to correct his dog every 20 yards, if that had bothered him, his ears would have perked up when I said, I'll bet you in 2 walks, I can get him to where he's a lot less than you're doing now to feed. It'll be fewer. But it didn't perk up. That wasn't bait for him to say it's worth trying out. And I know, he's got a pretty good attitude in general. So he wasn't a real tough cookie to crack, and I didn't crack him. Because I think he doesn't mind it. It's like second nature. He just does it without even having to think. He'll have to think with the food reward for a while. So again, honesty. My honesty in looking at him as a dog handler is, this is actually going to be challenging for him because he has to focus, right? So he's usually out there having a conversation with someone who's walking with him. And this would interrupt that. My honesty is, it also touches into my third thing, which is empathy. Having empathy for not just the client. It's easy for us to have empathy for the animals. I can't imagine anyone even listening to this podcast who doesn't have empathy for the animals. But have empathy for the client and the people around the client that are also affected by this animal, right? Empathy for that. Instead of, a kind of, well, boy, your wife's way too sensitive about that. It's a dog. A dog's going to do that. Yeah, but having empathy from her perspective on it, what it means to her. Maybe it means that she has to clean up something more than she normally would. And instead of dismissing it just because it's a dog, and that's what dogs do, getting a better way to get to the actual goal of getting them to have an alternative that's more workable for them and help them out with that. So empathy is a really big one, which is not just caring and feeling sorry, but actually thinking about the other person's situation and how it affects them. How does that person feel? What does it do to them? And how negative is something to them? And having empathy for something that wouldn't bother you can be hard. It can be hard to imagine that he doesn't want to carry food. I get that because it doesn't seem like something all that hard to do. But to a guy who feels like he doesn't have to do that, maybe it's a big deal to him that walking down the road feeding his dog makes him look less like a big tough guy. So you have to have empathy for everyone that's being affected by this situation. And that can help the client sometimes learn to have empathy for others that are affected by their dog. So that's sometimes people focus on just the handler, and when you're in a family situation or a situation where this problem is happening in public, having empathy for how that's affecting other people is really important. And passing that knowledge, observation on to the client can help them feel like, oh, I never really thought about that. I guess I do need to change that. Because sometimes the person who calls you has done it just because their spouse or their life partner has been bugging them to do so. They don't want to. And then when you come in and say, well, actually, I can understand how that must be for them. They're all dressed up to go to work. They dress in nice clothes to go to work. And as they walk out the door, the dog comes up and jumps up on them and kind of slimes them. So now they're all messed up to go to work. So it might seem simple to you. Yes, it's true. The dog doesn't know the difference between clothes, right? But it doesn't take away feeling empathy for what that person feels at the moment.
I'm glad you brought up step 3 because I would never have got there with all the questions I asked.
I was looking at the clock.
Good. So was I, and I was still like, I'm never going to get there. I just want to. You made me. You're connecting lots of dots for me and making me think about things in new ways, and
that's my job.
Yeah, and you're doing a very good job of it, and I assume you would be for our listeners as well. So when we're thinking about looking for something we like, and we're pointing out that to the person that we're talking to, which, I think if I interpreted what you said correctly, is a form of masking, because what we really want to do is change their behavior. But what we're doing in that situation is putting some deposits in the trust account first, building that trust account up. And that can feel phony, as you said, or dishonest. But it made me think about, okay, we have a dog with a client, and we have to intervene in jumping up on the person's nice clothes when they're about to go to work. But this dog really doesn't like me being in this house. So I have to build a trust account with this dog first. I'm just going to give it some food and build, start to get it to associate me with good things. They're the same thing.
They are. They're exactly the same thing.
But the dog one doesn't feel phony, but the other one does.
Exactly, because we like dogs better than people.
Is that why, do you think?
Well, I think that because humans have the ability to hear information and take it, and we have more trouble communicating with the animals. So we kind of look at them as not quite as capable. So we have to build our communication tool with them. So when we start working with a dog that's never had positive reinforcement training before, you're right. What's the first thing we do? We build a reinforcement history so that dog trusts us, enjoys being around us. And as soon as we have that relationship, we can start asking more of them, can't we? We can start like going, now I think I'm going to see if I can get you to choose 4 feet on the floor rather than 2 feet up on a person. But you have to have the relationship. And just because a person called you and made the appointment, it doesn't mean you have a relationship yet. In fact, they might not be the ones that wanted to call you. Right? They're the ones getting harassed by the rest of the family about the dog's behavior. They would love you to come in and go, oh, I think you're right. You're doing it just fine and your family's screwed up. Yeah, so you're right. as you were starting to say that, I was waiting for a break to say it's the same as training the dog. You have to build the history. So you're right that with the dog, it doesn't feel phony, but we have come to understand I have to get the history of positive reinforcement with this animal for them to know they can get it here. This is where it's available. And it's the same that way. So if you can think of your client as a total newcomer to positive reinforcement, you might have an easier time accepting that you're going to spend some time getting them used to you providing them with positive reinforcement. So you become a safe place, and then you become someone who they probably will be a lot more open with as you try to help them solve the problem. Because you have been a place that when they first met you, it was all about positive reinforcement. It wasn't like you walked up and said, well, the first thing is we got to get rid of that collar. You started out with an aversive. Is that how you would introduce yourself to a new animal client? Of course not. You wouldn't say, hello, my name's Michele. Here's an aversive. You want to say, hello, my name's Michele, and I am full of positive reinforcement. So you can trust me that that's what's coming from me. So it is just the same. And maybe it won't feel phony when you think of it as I'm just priming my learner. I'm priming them so they know that I'm trustworthy. But I can still try to do it from an honest perspective of I'm noticing something. Ooh, wow, you do a wonderful job on your dog's nails. Really nice. I'm not going to say that to somebody who's got a dog whose nails are awful. Probably at some time in the future, I'm going to go, do you need help in how to do nails? Because I can tell the nails aren't done ever. Right. So finding something, even if it's just the color of your dog's eyes or the expression, because the dog's ugly, dirty, who knows? So you don't have to be totally dishonest. It's just looking for the right thing. The same with the client when you start giving instruction is you look for anything they're doing well, even if it seems ridiculous to you. So something as easy as the way you went to your bait bag and got that reward and delivered was perfect. It was really good. A lot of people have a tendency to want to go right back to the bait bag after they deliver the treat. And that gets the dog's attention away from behavior, but you didn't do that. Now, the person probably has no idea that they just did it well, right? But that's a better way to teach. After you give the treat, don't go back to the bait bag. Just wait a minute, because then we have this animal thinking about the behavior instead of watching your hand go back for the bait bag. So a simple example of taking an opportunity you get to give positive reinforcement, because you're still building that history with that person. You can't just spend 2 minutes doing positive reinforcement and then go, okay, now let's get that collar off that dog. You're going to have to be a little more tactful than that.
And I think I'm gonna we talked about empathy, and I haven't got there yet. I've got a whole nother couple of episodes to ask questions about that. I'm joking. But I'm thinking about point number 1, which is kindness, and think about point number 2, which is honesty. Now, I can think of situations where I feel I have a really high trust account with a human learner. I deliver honesty because something comes up with kindness to the absolute best of my ability, but it damages the trust account so much that now the relationship, the trust is broken. What I mean by that is when I say something now, it goes through a filter, and that person thinks, why is that person really saying that thing? Because they're not trusting.
Yeah. But if you have, now after that happened, when you feel yourself in a situation where you think you have to deliver bad news, bad stuff, I think preparing them for that and giving them the option, meaning they have the right to go, I don't think I want you to tell me about that. So they feel the trust is still there, that they can trust you, that you're not going to force it on them. You're not just going to internally say, I've got a great relationship with this person. I had that happen just recently with a friend of mine, very close friend. We trained together quite a bit. And and she was doing something with her dog. And I mean, I teach her all the time. So my perspective was way too stupid in that I wasn't thinking ahead. We have an amazing trust account. I mean, really good. But what I did is she was busy training her dog, and I interrupted her to tell her that she could be doing something better. And what I should have done was waited until she was taking a short break and say, I have a thought about something I saw you do, but it was working pretty good for you. But you tell me if you want me to share that. I mean, you tell me if you care. And I know what she'd say. She'd say, "Oh, please tell me." But because I interrupted her doing something and saying, "Oh, you know what we'll do? If you do this, it's going to go a lot better." It was a little too pushy. And I hurt the account for a moment. But I've learned quickly enough I backpedaled really quickly and said, "God, I'm really sorry I interrupted you. I had no business doing that." Later, she came up and said, "Now, would you go ahead and tell me what it was?" Because that little moment went away because I just went, "God, I shouldn't have done that. I should have waited till you weren't working your dog." And again, there's honesty. I should have, right? If I was a better trainer at that moment, I wouldn't have interrupted you because there was nothing bad going on. It just, I saw her doing something, and it was my opportunity to increase her skills by showing her another way she could do it.
And I think a lot of the listeners, and gratitude to you, the listener, for sticking with where my thoughts are on this episode, because it's really making me see things in a different way in terms of how through Animal Training Academy, we talk about this stuff and frustration. When we're talking to others about the tools they're using that, and it relates to our values and ethics about training, which is always an emotional subject. It's always a subject where stakes are high. It's always a crucial conversation, most often, not always. So there's a case where you want to be honest, you want to do it in a kind way, but you acknowledge that even that might damage your trust account.
Yes. Yes.
But what is the lesser of the two evils? Being frustrated because you spoke your truth and you didn't speak your truth without a respect for what the other person wanted or a respect for your relationship. I'm not suggesting that, but you're just including your needs in that conversation as well. But you feel frustration and you damage the relationship versus not saying anything, but being kind, maintaining the relationship, but wearing a mask the whole time and feeling prolonged frustration because your needs aren't being met in that interaction.
In those situations, the best tool that I've gotten better, I'm still not great at remembering that I've got this tool, is to ask them. Ask them. If you start down that road of hurting the relationship, you can usually tell by body language that somebody's feeling something. You might not even feel like you're really being very punishing at all. You're just giving them information. To stop and go, "Ooh, I'm kind of, are you okay? Am I like going down a road you don't want to go down? Or what do you think?" I want to make sure that anything that I suggest is something that you're open or interested in of some kind. And maybe you're just not like ready to think about that change yet. I like to always put the yet because that leaves the open door for them to call you back when they are ready. And it could, for some people, it almost becomes a challenge. So for a trainer that's into improving themselves, when I say, "Let me suggest this," and this person, very experienced, and they go, "Well, no, this is going really well." I go, "That's really great. You keep going, and you're just not ready for that yet." Drives them crazy because now what do they want? They want to know what I wanted to do. But if they're not ready, they were happy they have an out. "Yeah, I'm happy with that. This is working fine for me." That's good. So if you can remember before you actually damage the relationship, save it. So it's more important that you keep that trust account with this person if you're going to help them through the future. Even if it's someone you're never going to see again. This is going to be a one-time consult and you're never going to see them again. If you treat them like someone you want them to want to see you again, guess what word of mouth is going to be about you? It's going to be really good compared to, well, this doesn't matter. I'm never coming back here anyway. I'm just going to tell this person what I really feel. And it doesn't matter that I hurt the trust account. Well, you might have hurt the trust account, but in the same vein, made them not trust the techniques very much, or might not trust what you told them because you kind of irritated them by that. So the hard part of this is through life experience, and the more clients you have, the better you get, as long as you're open to what you're trying to do in self-improvement with communication, is you get more experience at noticing when things just change, noticing so you can do something. Instead of just, and if you have a spiel that you've done for a specific behavior or something, and you're used to the spiel, you're used to, and then the next step will be, and whatever your spiel is, you need to be prepared to interrupt that and notice what the person you're talking to or the people, the group. So I've been in seminars that I'm giving, workshops with an audience of like 50, 100 people, and some of them have working spots with their dogs. And I'm better now at, while I'm discussing something or we just demoed something and it went well, and I'm talking about the techniques, I can tell, oh, that lady in the front row in the blue seat, she's not liking this. There's something about this that, and immediately I'll go, now, a lot of people might think, da 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 da. Is there anyone here who's a little confused by that, or thinking that this could be a problem to do it this way? And then their hand goes up, right? So they almost feel like they're pretty cool that they had that question in their head of, why would you do that? I don't think I want to do that. So you just get better at it. I didn't used to be that good. I can almost have a sense of it now in the atmosphere. There's somebody in the room that's not liking this. And if I can interrupt my spiel and take a moment to let them open their mind to now let me talk about why that won't hurt it for that. It won't ruin the dog for that. If we teach the dog to bow first as a trick before we teach it to go down, it will not interfere with teaching the dog how to go down. It's something as simple as that. People can get hooked up on. It's like, I would never teach a bow before a down. I've got to have that down, right? It's like, it's not going to harm it. It is two different behaviors, and you can have techniques to avoid it being a problem. So that sort of thing is having that sixth sense about what's happening. And when you have someone you're right in front of talking to, those are the people that will be easier for you to notice something just changed. And then you'll be able to be better about noticing the surrounding people that might be listening, and something just changed. And I've often looked at somebody who they made a funny face. It was really easy to see somebody who wasn't very happy with that or disagreed with it, or they rolled their eyes and started whispering to their friend. That's always a good one, right? I've gone, I see that you don't really agree with that. Do you have a question about it? I'd love to clarify what I mean if you're confused. But you got to be careful with that, because that can feel like an attack. You know what I mean? Like a challenge. So you got to feel that it would be appropriate with that person to do that. If maybe you've been friendly before, it's day 2 of the seminar, and you've had a good conversation with that person, and they were very jovial and fun and laughing with you, you have a little bit of a trust account. And it could be that you could do something like that. Other than that, I'll just pretend that that's a part of my spiel. Is some people think that doing this would cause a problem. And I know what they're thinking, because I've been there enough times. It's the experience of knowing exactly why they rolled their eyes. So I'm going to nip it in the bud. And there's probably somebody else in the audience thinking the same thing, but I didn't read it on them. So you get better at knowing by demeanor when there's concern/questioning, and questioning in a way that they think, this sounds weird, so that you can address it and acknowledge them. Positive reinforcement for questioning it. It's like, it's totally normal that you might think that sounds really out of, a lot of people think that at first. Let me tell you how it actually pans out.
Well, as you're talking, my mind was going all over the place, but I was reminded of in April this year, sitting in Wellington, my hometown, watching Michael Shikashio present and feeling really grateful that not only was this information being disseminated to this group of people, but it was being delivered by a professional who knew how to deliver information to a room of people. And that's why I'm so grateful that we did 2 episodes, Michelle, because I can understand without having seen you present in person that you are a great disseminator of information. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to disseminate it via our podcast episode. Michelle, you have changed my life because
Wow, you just made my day.
there's everyone's different, and you even said this earlier on in this episode. If you could just take one thing away from this encounter and learn about it and change what you do moving forward, you said something along those lines. But that little addition of asking for permission first is not something that I have. I'm sure I've done it before, but it's by no means an intentional part of how I engage in talking about challenging things where I want to be honest, and I want to be kind, and I want to have empathy. So it will be now, I would imagine, from today until I die.
Cool, very cool.
And for everyone else listening to this episode, you probably took away different things. But it also made me realize today, talking to you, Michelle, that one of the challenges that we face is mindsets of other people and people's mindsets around the desire to consistently improve and the desire to consistently grow. We've talked about it on this podcast before in terms of the growth mindset. And you talked about it just then in terms of reinforcing someone asking a question and that curiosity. And it's shifted my perspective a little bit on acknowledging that as a problem and therefore identifying in others what behaviors we are trying to reinforce, behaviors that we might label as trying to grow and improve, especially in those who we can see or form a judgment and own our judgment that this individual would benefit from new skills in terms of how they think about things and their desire to consistently improve.
Right. Well, the cool thing about it is that when you do it, when you change the way you interact and you see how it worked for you, you get really reinforced for it. So you want to do it again and again and again. So that's the cool thing about reinforcement is, it might feel a little weird at first to do it because you're not used to doing it. And once you are, it becomes second nature again, because you're reinforced by it. And the other little point that I don't know why what you just said made me think of it, but is understanding that having empathy for the person you're trying to change, who are they surrounded by? It's like that's not they may have a group of friends, relatives, social people that they're always around, that this would be shockingly different for them too. So that just having empathy for them about how hard that is when they're surrounded all day long by people who think another way. And that's just because of the way they've been brought up and that's how they learn. Yeah. So, and at work maybe. And so they just don't, what? He had you feed the dog? It's understandable and I have empathy for them. It might be easier for me because I've been there, but it's interesting to me how you can run into so many traditional trainers who they don't really think about change and others who do. It's really interesting how it's either one or the other. They're either curious and anything that would be better is exciting, and others that just, no, this is the way I do it. It's really interesting. And you're just going to run into all of that.
Yeah, we've done some episodes, Michelle, on the show on the growth mindset, which is a book by Carol Dweck. And the growth mindset is that mindset of always wanting to grow and consistently improve versus the fixed mindset, who is, I'm fixed. My traits are fixed. My skills are fixed. Why change? This works. So I think that what you're saying resonates with content we've made in the past where it was framed in that way. You've got these growth mindset orientated individuals and you've got these fixed mindset orientated individuals. In reality, context specific individuals might be growth mindset orientated over here, fixed mindset orientated over here. I don't think it's as black and white as I potentially made it just out to be. Hey, Michele, thank you so much for sharing everything with us. For our listeners who might have missed our last episode, or those who are keen to explore more, where can they learn more about your work, how to get in touch? Is your website, I know you're trying to retire, is your website the best place for people to visit?
The website might be best for people just to visit and learn a little bit more. I mean, you can contact me through the website if you want to contact me. Facebook too, Michele Pouliot on Facebook. I'm not active on Twitter or Instagram. I had a hard enough time dealing with email and Facebook. So that's probably one of the best, because on Facebook you can message me too if you have a question or want to ask more. But
awesome. Well, we will link to those places in the show notes for everyone's convenience. Michele, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on our show twice. Your insights and expertise have been invaluable. Thank you for sharing your journey and knowledge with us and our listeners.
Thank you.
And thank you as well so much for listening. This is your host, Ryan Cartledge, signing off from this episode of the Animal Training Academy podcast show. It's our hope today's conversation sparked inspiration and added some tools to your trainer's toolbox. Remember, every training challenge is an approximation towards becoming a better trainer. Embrace the rough patches, learn from them, and keep improving. And don't forget, the path to growing your skills and expanding your knowledge continues beyond this episode. Visit www.atamember.com to join our waitlist and be the first to know when our membership doors open again. There you'll find a supportive community of trainers just like you, working to make a positive difference in the lives of animals and humans alike. Until next time, keep honing your skills, stay resilient, and remember, every interaction with an animal or human learner is your opportunity to create ripples. We're here cheering you on every step of the way. See you at the next episode.